worries over Russian interference with democratic elections. It comes after the U.S. intelligence agencies agree that it already happened here in the United States. And remember, interference and collusion are not the same thing. Now, of course, you would not know that by listening to President Trump.
They did a rotten job of running, but to convince people about this hoax, that was probably the thing that they did best, but it is one great hoax. No, Russia did not help me. That I can tell you.
Russia has 20% of her uranium for whatever reason, and a lot of people understand what those reasons may be. I think that's your Russia story. That's your real Russia story, not a story where they talk about collusion, and there was none. It was a hoax. Democrat lawmakers will have to decide. They can continue their obsession with the Russian hoax, or they can serve the interests of the American people.
Despite the president's comments, it is a genuine threat to our democracy. America is not the only target. Business Insider reports National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster says Russia has set their sights on the upcoming election in Mexico. But this is hardly the first or even the second time they've attempted to interfere in another country's process. Just a few months ago, Spanish officials became convinced that Russian-based groups use social media to spread support for the country's vote on the Catalonian independence. Dutch intelligence claim that Russia or Russian-backed groups attempted to spread fake news and propaganda during their election last year, although they concede that the Kremlin did not succeed in substantially influencing the process. Local news in Norway is reporting that their Labour Parliament group was targeted by a, quote, foreign agent reportedly said to be the same Russian intelligence group that targeted the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 election. And last November, UK Prime Minister Theresa May targeted Russia in a formal speech, insisting that the Kremlin attempted to interfere in their elections and, quote, weaponize information. See, I didn't even have time to get to France on that one. And I assure you, Emmanuel Macron has a lot to say. We should note that this has been the Russian playbook for years. They interfered in Ukrainian elections back in 2014 as part of their strategy to reclaim power over former Soviet states. And of course, this level of control and meddling dates back to the foundation of the Soviet Union a century ago. I'm joined now by Business Insider's Christopher Woody. He is the one who broke this story about U.S. intelligence becoming aware of potential Russian interference in Mexico. There's a lot to unpack here. Now, for a long time, we know Russians' actions have been limited basically to their neighbors. Why are they emboldened now? Is it strictly the power of social media means their reach is endless?
Well, social media certainly gives Russia new avenues in which to do this. I would say in the case of Mexico specifically, affecting the outcome of the election, it likely gives Russia a means to, in their eyes, undercut the U.S. by driving a wedge between the U.S. and Mexico, which have extensive relationships on national security, economics, trade, immigration, things like that. In Latin America more generally, Russia has long ties to leftist governments there. So in Russia's eyes, I'm sure in the region and elsewhere in the world, if they can put in power governments that are, if not friendly, at least not hostile to Russia, that benefits their interest in the Western Hemisphere and around the world.
Is it telling that U.S. intelligence services are able to acknowledge interference? And again, interference doesn't mean collusion. The president could acknowledge interference, but he doesn't. So what does that tell us?
Well, I think it's in keeping with the fact that multiple U.S. agencies have said there was Russian interference in the U.S. election, but that has been little remarked upon by the White House. It tells you, they're seeing, McMaster and other agencies haven't specifically detailed what they've seen or how they're detecting it. So there's questions to be asked there, but the fact that they're seeing it and commenting on it publicly is noteworthy.
It is noteworthy. It is something we're going to continue to pay attention to. Interference, no bueno. Business Insider's Christopher Woody, thank you so much. When we come back, Jared Kushner, well, he is Trump's de facto diplomat.